All right, let's talk about the Oregon Ducks. This is a program that's transitioning to the Big Ten, and they're doing it with style and energy. A lot of momentum behind the Oregon program, and we've got more great news on that front. I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, we all know the Oregon Ducks, Dan Lanning running the show there. They've had one heck of an offseason, adding a lot of critical players into this team. As again, like I mentioned a couple times, moving into the Big Ten. We talked about it all offseason. They're doing a lot of things right, but it's not just the new additions they've added this offseason. It's not just the moves Dan Lanning has made to kind of prepare this team to the Big Ten. It's guys stepping up and becoming potential breakout stars for this Oregon team. There's one guy in particular that rises to the top of that list. Let's pull up this report, courtesy of SI.com. Defensive lineman Jordan Burch is prioritizing consistency in his final season of collegiate football. The South Carolina transfer is anticipated to have a breakout season in 2024. Burch has made the Athletics Freak List for the second straight year, a list curated by Bruce Feldman, really smart guy. I highly recommend you follow him on social media, knows his stuff, to compile all the most ridiculous athletes in college football. He is really unique. He's put on 13 pounds of muscle, Oregon coach Dan Lanning said, which is, I mean, that's just bonkers. 13 pounds of muscle is ridiculous for a guy already in that great shape that Burch was. That's crazy. Lanning went on to say he's different in his playing attributes this season. Burch has taken on a leadership role that translates off the field as well. So he already was a freak, put on 13 pounds of muscle, become an even bigger freak, and then now has become a leader off the field. This guy literally checks every box for breakout star as this Oregon team once again looks prepared to shock everybody in the Big Ten in 2024. Great news for the Ducks, but Mize, before I hand it over to you, Oregon fans, we're talking Burch, we're talking defensive lineman. Let me ask you this. Who is your favorite Ducks defensive lineman of all time? There's a lot of really interesting names, some kind of recent, some kind of in the distant past that come to mind for me, but you can only pick one. Who is your favorite Oregon Ducks defensive lineman of all time? Put them in the comment section below. But Mize, what is your thoughts on this latest Oregon Ducks news?
Yeah, Nick, and you bring up, Oregon Ducks from the past, great defensive lineman. You know, there's a guy that comes to mind recently, Kayvon Thibodeau, did a lot of great stuff over at Oregon, and we all know how crazy that guy was, how athletically gifted he was. Jordan Burch, probably a little bit better. You look at Kayvon Thibodeau, this is a guy came in 6'5", 258 pounds, or at least that's what he's weighing in now at the New York Giants. You look at Burch, 6'6", 290 pounds. This guy looks absolutely insane when you look at his physical attributes. But I think, like you said, this is the year that he is going to break out for the Ducks. I think he's taken his time. He's been through the South Carolina program. In South Carolina, they produce a lot of great defensive linemen as well. So that's a great place to start out. Comes over to Oregon. He makes the freak list last year. We saw him, he's been big, physical, athletic type guy. Settled into the Dan Lanning defense. Now he's coming into his second year with the Ducks. This is when he's going to put it all together. This is where we're going to see this play hit the field. And it's not just me, Dan Lanning, saying it. He's saying he really likes what he's got going on. We've seen him put the work this offseason, 13 pounds of muscle on a frame that is already so big. That's incredibly difficult to do. So it is obvious that this guy has been putting in a ton of work this offseason. He himself feels like that he is going to be a breakout player because he did the work. He put in the effort. But I also like the attributes that they say he is becoming more of a leader as well and is transferring to off the field. He's gone through interviews and talked about, how he realizes he's the older guy in the room. He wants to make sure all the guys underneath him, have a good example to lead, to follow. He's going to try to lead these guys and be the best leader he can be. And I think he's doing a fantastic job so far. He obviously seems like a great guy, but lead by example. Do the work. Do what he's done this whole offseason. Put in all of the effort. Show these young guys like, hey, this is how hard you have to work in the offseason to be a great player. And then he comes out and hopefully, I'm assuming here, but he's going to put those results on the field this year. I think it's going to be inspiration to any young players behind him. Like, hey, we all know Jordan Burch, very talented guy. He put in the work all last offseason. The results show on the field. So I'm really excited for the Ducks because not only do you have a guy that is going to be one heck of a player this season, you're going to have a guy that is going to elevate the talent in that defensive line room and really give people an example of what you need to be an Oregon Duck defensive lineman.
Yeah, and you talk about off the field stuff and the example. That's all fantastic, undeniably so. And him growing and maturing, that's definitely going to be something that adds a lot of value to this Oregon team. Again, as they work through training camp, the gauntlet that training camp is. I mean, it's a nightmare. Then, of course, the regular season is going to be tough as well. But I'm just going to go back to the size and just he already was a freak putting on 13 plus pounds. That is such important when you transfer from the old Pac-12 into the Big Ten. The Big Ten, traditionally, historically, and it is this way now too, is a size conference, is a power conference, is just how much big people can we put on the field at once, right? The Michigan Wolverines basically won the national title by just loading up and running the football with a lot of big dudes, right? They out Alabama and out physical to Alabama, right? That just tells you, and Alabama out physical Georgia. So there you go. I mean, it just tells you the kind of football that Big Ten, the top programs in the Big Ten like to play. And I think Oregon, very, very talented. I think they're very, very well coached. Obviously, there's no denying that. But it is stylistically very different than what they had to put up with in the Pac-12. But if they've got guys like Burch putting on the size, getting bigger, stronger, that transition to the Big Ten is going to be a lot smoother than people think. I think there's a lot of people in the Big Ten that are still expecting Oregon to come in and kind of get smacked in the mouth pretty much this first season because they can't compete with the physical style of play. Listen, if you look at Jordan Burch for about a second and a half, you're like, yeah, that dude can play some physical football. He's got every physical tool you want. He's getting smarter. His second year, much more comfortable with the Oregon Ducks. I think he's going to be a breakout star for this team. And I think he's going to be kind of one of the tips of the spear to drive home the fact that this Oregon Ducks program can physically hang with anybody in the Big Ten.